Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is Justin Paulson. I'm here with a good friend of mine.
My name's Tiff Mussman.
Yeah, that's right. We are friends. We hang out. And we decided to start recording some of our hangouts and some of the stuff that we talk about and go through in a podcast. And we're going to try this out and see where it goes. And maybe you'll like it. Maybe you won't. If you don't, it's for us anyways. So
welcome to our therapy session.
Yes, that we are finally going to be referring to as friends with death benefits, which will make sense as we go. It might not make you any more comfortable about it, but that's how it's going to be. Like I said, my name is Justin Paulson. This podcast will focus on grief, and not only like grief of like losing loved ones, but like the freshness of it. Me and Tiff are both going through that right now. We had a pretty whopping crazy summer, did we not?
We did. We really did.
We're still pretty punch drunk from it. And we'll get into that, exactly what that means. But Tiff, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah. So I'm Tiff Mussman. I'm nearly 40 years old, and I'm a mother of two, a wife, and a successful business lady. And love life, love comedy, love everything about people. Well, not everything, but typically most things about people. So I'm just a student of life and enjoy getting to know new people. And Justin and I have a new friendship, kind of an unassuming friendship. If you could see us next to each other aesthetically, we are polar opposites, not only just in gender, but just
aesthetically pleasing, though, I'd like to say.
Very aesthetically pleasing. So yeah, it's been a fascinating journey and stuff, trying to navigate this new friendship based really around grief.
Yeah, unfortunate circumstances. It is a strange thing to think about, that sometimes good stuff comes from super bad shit. That's right. We're going to say shit on this podcast. I wanted to get that first one out of the way. You can do that on the internet. But, I mean, just to kind of let you guys know, me and Tiff have kind of known each other on and off, being from North Iowa. If you don't know someone, you know someone who does. So we were aware of each other, and then we both kind of got to know each other through doing radio work. And then since then, in June, my mother died unexpectedly. At only 56 years old, which, anyone losing their mom is a lot anyways, but I was definitely like a mama's boy, raised by women. It was just me and my mom and my sister. Like, there really wasn't any other like parental, my dad was around, but it was mostly my mom, other than those every other weekends that you'd spend, hanging out with the other parent. And that's the thing about like having parents, especially in the 90s when parents would split up. Like, it was always like one parent had you every other weekend while the other parent had you all the time, and you could always tell that every other weekend parent was the one that didn't quite want you as much as the other one did. Like, for my dad, it was never, I got my kids this weekend. It was always like, I got my kids this weekend.
Yeah.
But it was me and mom, and I never thought in a million years that at 35 I'd be doing this, for example, talking about this stuff. But it is heavy, and right away when it happened, without knowing me nearly as well as she's gotten to know me over the past few months, Tiff reached out, and she, it wasn't what she's going to be mostly talking about, wasn't her first round with horrible shit happening, and she had a bit of insight and was kind enough to reach out and, kind of let me know what to expect, and, validated a lot of the feelings I was having that a lot of other people didn't understand, and because of that, made us bond more, enjoy each other's company more. And then, through the summer, she was a super good friend to me. And then, unfortunately, at the end of the summer, things changed in her life quite a bit, which I'll let her explain.
Yeah. So as Justin kind of was talking about earlier, we sort of started bonding over voice notes. And, you get about a minute of snippets where you can convey your emotions, which to me is easier than doing over text. So I could tell that Justin had been struggling, and was just some posts that he had on Facebook. And so I intentionally voice noted him because I feel like you can get a lot of your emotions across with your tone.
Text context is hard to sometimes.
It's tough. It's tough. Yeah. So that's sort of how our relationship kind of matured, was through voice notes. And then we just became, closer. And then on September 11th, just about 40 some days ago, I lost my 22-year-old son tragically. And so it's kind of spun me into familiar territory with a lot of unknowns, I would say. So when Justin's referring to some knowledge on grief prior to this, I lost my sister to suicide it'll be 5 years this January on my birthday. And so I kind of knew some of the things that Justin had been saying and communicating on his posts and stuff. So I just wanted to reach out and validate him and say, hey, what you're feeling is really normal. I would experience this also. And so some of what I'm feeling now is very familiar in that way, but there's also new feelings with that. And they're feelings I've never felt before. And I thought I had run the gamut on the emotional, stuff, but I think I was really, really underestimated how deep it can really go and how it manifests itself in everyday life, everyday relationships, everyday tasks.
For sure. And I think that's what was probably the weirdest thing about us getting to be friends was, like, you were helping me with all that stuff, and you never could have guessed in a million years, at least me, that if you'd told me in like 3 months, out fresh from what I'm experiencing, I'm going to be trying, or at least attempting to do the exact same thing for you, is like a double whammy. It was enough, the stuff that you shared with me about your sister, that was enough, if nothing bad ever happened to either of us again for the rest of our lives, for us to, be able to talk about that for 100 years. But then, everything with Ethan happens, and it's definitely put us in a situation where, like, how could we not be good friends at this point? You know what I mean? Which, like I said, comes from a really weird, dark situation, but life has a weird way of doing that. And so, I mean, just based on all that's been happening to us, Tiff started doing some live videos, just kind of getting some of her feelings out. And some of those were good. Some of those weren't as good, depending on how you look at it. But I think we both realized that not only doing something like this and we intend to be very raw and very honest and not really spare anyone's feelings at all. So, and chances are, if you're offended by or think we're taking a shot at you with anything we're saying, that's probably your deal anyways. And we're not talking about anyone in particular necessarily, but we're going to talk about all the weird stuff, the stuff that bothers us, the stuff that bothers other people about us now.
And the stuff that you can't find in super polished paperback novels and podcasts, that are 3 years post tragic event. The idea behind this is to take it in real time, to take it in raw time, expose it for really what it is, and to allow it to work itself organically, however that looks. And it may look really ugly, and there may be, a lot of tears. There might be some anger. I can actually guarantee you that those things will happen. But, in researching in the past on how to deal with grief, I kept getting kind of this glossy, condensed bullshit, to be honest. And it, like what you are feeling is normal. And it is not, it's typical to feel anger or this, and then the 5 stages of grief and all of that stuff, which, by the way, was written by living people with cancer. So I'll never understand how, us as the survivors of the deceased can really go and gauge our emotions and our stages of grief based on based on somebody who wrote it that's living. So
right, and it's everybody's situation is slightly different.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that every person is slightly different, so just to have a book like here's exactly how you're gonna feel by a guy who's never met me. It's just not. It's not ideal. You can pick parts out of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I think for us is like, I don't think that we're gonna like change the world with this, but it's not only good for us to be able to talk about it, but I think it's also good. If anybody listening, that I can honestly say for sure that if I wouldn't have had you to bounce stuff off of in those first several weeks, like my wife's great. She really is. And she's been in the shit with me since day one, but she doesn't have as similar of an experience necessarily, and as much time to process that as you'd had. And you didn't have to reach out, you know what I mean? But you did. And, I think there needs to be more of that. People being honest and using unfortunate circumstances of their life to benefit other people somehow. And if we can do that through this,
I think it's a testament to something I always say is that people need each other. We need each other. And I would challenge anyone to present to me actual successful story of someone dealing with grief alone. All the way through.
Sure.
I just don't know that it can be done. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't have a PhD in psychology or anything like that. I would consider myself an expert on grief just because
experience.
Experience only. But I just know that I would have never been able to really pull myself through the thick of it without others, wanted or unwanted. There have been many times that I just wanted to be left alone, but people intentionally inserted themselves in my life. They were pushy, and it's what I needed at the time. And so that's it's kind of what I offered to you was, hey, I'm going to be intrusive in your life now.
Yeah, deal with it. I guess I failed to mention earlier when I was kind of introducing myself that I am a stand-up comedian by trade. If anyone's wondering why is this asshole making cracks, it's such a serious subject. It's what I'm here for. It's what I was hired for. But so I'll be honest, when Tiff approached me with this and was like, hey, I want to do this, would you be interested in doing it with me? I won't say I was against it, but I definitely had my reservations, only out of my own fear.
Sure.
You know what I mean? To be that vulnerable and then to put it out in the public. Because normally when I want people to listen to me talk about myself, it's usually, like dick jokes. But not my real life. This isn't normally the stuff anyone would pay anywhere from $5 to $10 to hear me talk about on stage for 25 minutes. But I think it's important. I think no matter what you do or who you are or how you live your life, this is something that we can't escape as people. It's going to happen to everyone.
Yep.
And I think that it happened to us. I think we can agree way too soon with both the people we lost recently. I mean, not only your son, but your sister, it's different.
Yeah.
It hits different.
But it shows no bias. That's what's the interesting thing about death is it doesn't matter who you are, what age you are.
And you can go forever without experiencing it.
You can.
And it catches up to you eventually. 2012, my grandma died in her 80s, and it was devastating. I thought it was, up until this last June, it was the worst day of my life. I was there with her when she died at the nursing home, and she was a big part of my life too. But, losing a parent, at 50, like she was at my house on Monday, and she was dead on Thursday, and that's like, I think, and that's something we're probably going to get into in the next episode is like the disbelief of it, like the fact that like trying to grasp how real it is, like someone to just be gone like that, and like that's it, that's that, and which is plenty to talk about there too.
It's the whole topic of grief and loss is so vast and so deep in so many different areas. And I think I would say the one smart thing that I hear through the sea of complete dumb shit is that nobody grieves the same. And that is true. So if you've ever read a book on grief or ever listened to a podcast on grief and they've said that if there is nothing else that you've taken away from it, that's a goodie. Nobody does it the same. And,
no.
And no person who passes on and gets extracted from our life is the same either. So how could it be? The way your relationship with your mother is a completely different relationship than mine is with my son. And so it's going to be different.
But then there, at the same time, there's those, like we said, it's going to hit everybody at the same, you know what I mean? Same thing with us where it's different. There are those similarities that you can't ignore where it's a lot of the same emotions, a lot of the same crap that you feel on a daily basis. And I also feel like the reason that we've connected so much is because we get so much what the other person's going through in such a fresh way where like if there's a day where I don't hear from you, I'm not the type of friend that's going to be like, oh, what? You know what I mean? And sometimes people will try to make you feel bad for not catering to them, even when you're in the one spot where you shouldn't be. Some people.
Others want to be reassured and taken care of by you
and
assuring
we don't
them.
have that.
No, it's not necessary.
And which is nice because neither of us are in a state of mind day to day that's fully with it like we were before any of this crap.
Yeah.
And not everybody gets that.
Right.
I think a big thing we talked about too was how like right afterwards everybody else just kind of gets to go back to normal life and it's still right there with you and they kind of expect you to get back to normal too and it's
kind of like I always look at it as like you have this big event and all these people come and it's just like elbow room only, like everyone wants to help. Everybody wants to help. They want to be in it with you and they want to sit with you and they want to bring the meals and they want to do the things. And then it's sort of like after the party's over, you're left with all the dishes to clean up, It's like, shit, the mess is still here. And so you're kind of just looking around like, God.
I don't think anybody wants to like admit that about themselves because the intention is right.
Yeah, of course.
Truly everyone wants to be the hero. You know what I mean? And to be there for someone who's going through crap, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's doing nice things or saying nice things or that makes them feel good.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So ultimately, even though they're not like thinking that or wanting to admit that, like, I'm going to be nice to this person because that's going to make me feel pretty good.
Well, everything we do in this life, every single thing that we do has a payoff. You get paid back in some way to your ego or, whatever. So I would say, although it has the best intentions, I think people do want to swoop in and be the hero because it's like immediately after crisis, it's like, you're 40 messages deep into let me bring you a casserole.
Right, exactly. I didn't get a single lasagna, Tiff. I was thinking, man, I'm gonna be up to my elbows in lasagna. I didn't get a single one. I'm real upset about that. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
But now I don't eat carbs, so now it's like something bad happens to me again. What the hell are they gonna bring me? I don't know. It's like I don't want a sympathy broccoli. Nobody wants that. It's not a thing. But don't you feel also on the other side of that, like, where like everyone else is kind of back to normal and like because they're not as directly connected to it as you are, don't you almost feel like there's a strange guilt on your end where you're like, oh, I'm burdening people by being a bummer and like maybe I should, you know what I mean? And you try
I
to
would
not
say very much
burden people with the heaviness that you're feeling.
I'm definitely in the thick of that right
even
now.
though maybe I don't necessarily think anyone expects that, but
no, it's probably more in my head than people, because I think people would still welcome the sad girl over. They're still going to be like, oh, yeah, we should have people over for Halloween. Ooh, should we invite the Mussmans? Yeah. I mean, we should. They probably haven't been out in a while.
They're pretty bummed.
They're going to be bummed, though. And,
There'll probably be some crying.
And so you just so you wage it out in your head and you think, God, should we go? Do we have the strength to go? We should go. We haven't done anything. But God, does that mean I have to pretend like I'm happy? Will it be okay if I just sit on the couch and stare into oblivion?
And will it really be, or will they just be nice to me and pretend that it's okay? But then when I leave, they're going to be like, dude, she's impossible to hang out with. We just got to wait this thing out because she is not fun anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I remember like my little sister-in-law graduated like 2 weeks after Mom died. And the day after they did, because of COVID, they did this parade for them where they drove from the high school up through Central Park and like people lined and waved to them or whatever. And so we went uptown, and I was just a shitty mess. Like, I mean, it'd been less than 24 hours. Like, I had this dead stare in my eye and just like wanted the world to burn to the ground and just didn't know whether to throw up or like. And this poor kid who, like, I love this little girl. She's like my buddy. I've known her since she was 9, and she's like in her little dress and she's all excited. And I'm like, there was this strange contrast of like, she's at this point in her life where like her adult life is starting and she's excited and it's new and it's fresh. And like, I'm a day out from like my mom's life ending. And it's like, there's almost so many thoughts that run through your head that you can't even like grab one of them. You know what I mean? It's just like, but again, that's like the vastness of it all. I think we're going to do our best to talk about as much of that as we can. I mean, as it comes to us sometimes, and we'll try to keep it organized to an extent.
But you know, I'll be honest. A lot of it isn't organized in your head, and I think that's the beauty of what we want to try to expose is how confusing, how complicated, how complex the process of grief is. It's like I always picture it as like a bunch of string just all squiggly and just all wadded up together. Like, so it's like, where do you find the end to even begin to start to unravel it? And that's what it feels like the majority of the time. And every once in a while I'll get a little bit of the end and I'll get a little knot untied, and then I'm kind of feeling like I'm making progress that day, or even within the hour, and then before I know it, it's all balled back up. And it's just, there is no real structure to it. And I think a lot of the books that I've read and some of the research I've done on it, in the old times, they used to make it seem like there was these steps of grief. You complete the step, you're over the step, you move to the next step. But in reality, you know, step 1 can rear itself, you know, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of times before you even ever work past it, if you ever do. And so the truth of the matter is there is really no way around it or over the step. It's just the only way is through. So
right. And it's like, yeah, there's steps and there's some validity to it, but it's like trying to go up steps you don't know in the dark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, have you ever gotten to the top of a staircase and thought there was still one more step, and you like bring your foot up way high and you stomp down on the thing like you're trying to like summon some type of Viking god or something? And like your ankle goes through your shin bone and you're just like looking around to make sure nobody saw that. I go through far more of that than just stepping normal steps. Like, it's like whatever the emotional equivalent of that is, looking like a total asshole and stomping on the ground. That's basically how I deal with things. When I have a bad day, it's just like, so what are you gonna do? You know what I mean? And it's interesting to try to be your normal self. Yeah,
there's a lot of confusion behind why why can I not just get back there? You know, it's, you're dealing with an identity crisis.
Everything's different now.
Yeah.
I was, the next day, I was like, luckily I have people around me that let me know when I'm making terrible decisions. But the day after, I had a show booked in Wisconsin, and I ended up not going. But even a few hours before, I was wrestling with it. Like, maybe I should go do this show. Maybe doing comedy and doing what I love to do is what I should do right now. And upon reflecting how the rest of that day went emotionally, it's probably a good thing that I didn't go expect people to pay me to act like that, because it would have been a real shit show. I would have gone viral for all the wrong reasons if that got recorded. Like, I'd have started lashing out at people and just short-circuiting electricity from all the tears and snot, and it just wouldn't have been good at all.
How have you found your way back into your craft? Like, I mean, your job is to be, and we talked about this a lot, like, all comedians have deep-seated pain.
We're broken humans.
You're broken. Yeah. So how do you feel like you have been able to navigate back through to find a little bit of clarity to get back up there?
I think the progressing part has been hard, as far as like writing new jokes and evolving my act, finding the energy or the drive or the mindset to do that. has been really difficult, and I don't think I'm there yet. I've written some jokes, and plus with COVID, it's crazy because there's no barometer for it. These aren't real shows to me that we're doing. Like, the crowds are smaller, and don't get me wrong, I'm happy to be doing it, but it's just not that same feeling, that high of having a large group of people validate than what you came up with. It's funny, but I guess I'm lucky. To answer your question, I'm lucky because since I started doing it, it's a distraction.
Yeah.
I get up there and something clicks, like Stallone and Over the Top. I don't know. But I want to make as many Sylvester Stallone references in this podcast as I can. I just decided that just now. But I'm the Sylvester Stallone of sad. That's who I am. I'm Sad Sly. But see, this is the stuff you can't write this stuff. If we don't have that in notes, this is all organic. That's why they pay me the big bucks. But it's an absolute distraction. I'm up there and I'm doing it, and I love it. And for that 5 to 35 to 45 minutes, whatever I'm lucky enough to get, I'm able to just focus on that and my act and my jokes. And sometimes as soon as I'm off stage, especially early on, those first couple, like the first one I did, my business partner and fellow comic Jake Peterson, he's an asshole, and he had to say something, of course, oh, Justin lost his mom and it's been a tough month. I'm like, you're a fucker, because we didn't have to do this. Right. They don't know that. Yeah, they all paid $10 to get in here, and so I had to try to like choke it down. It's for you, Mom. It was that was hard. But like I said, it's I would almost say easy because it's so distracting from all the other bullshit. I don't have to. I think about it before. Like, I'm like, especially like when I first went to go get back up, because so much of my act is just absolutely absurd. If you've never seen me perform, it gets a little weird at times. It's just who I am. And it seemed like a stretch for me to, feeling the way I was feeling with my real life stuff, to like get on stage with a smile and, goof off and like have it not seem at first almost disrespectful, like to the memory, you know what I mean? Almost like I shouldn't be laughing and having fun right now. And this is what the fuck's going on. But you got to, you have to, you got to get back doing stuff. And
because this is what we talked about when the podcast Brainchild was first born, was that we believe, and it's something I've always used as more of like a defense mechanism, but like humor is so healing. The laughter is the best medicine is the truest statement, And so I think you're so lucky in the way that your craft is humor and comedy, and it feels good. Feels good to make other people feel good, but in return, it's very rewarding. Absolutely. It's for me. It's nice that you liked it, but this is for me. But it's and we still haven't fully gotten back rolling again with everything, but it's good to. You were gracious enough to gift your husband with a birthday party, including our silly jokes. Backyard comedy
on the 3rd of July. That's the other thing is,
that's great.
As a comedian, they call them hecklers when people bother you while you're on stage. I have never been heckled by explosives until I did comedy in your backyard because I failed to remember that on the 3rd of July in North Iowa, when you're surrounded by other houses, chances are some bottle rocket behavior is going to be going on. So I'm telling stories in your backyard and be like, anyway, so how's everybody? And I'm like, wow, I'd have to wait that out. But those are the ones you remember. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was in the middle. That was before Ethan, but after Mom. Yeah. And we'd hung out. It's been cool. It's been, aside from the reasoning, I think we really are hitting it off, Tiff. I think we're gonna be good friends. Yeah. Gosh darn it. But you've helped me in other ways. You've introduced me to other positive people that have been super cool to me. Me and my wife are in the process of trying to get in better shape and lose weight. I actually just hit a huge milestone today. As we're recording this, I was able to get under 250 pounds a day, which Still sounds like a lot, but
that's awesome.
it's the first time in a decade since
Yeah.
I've done that. But we went on this crazy long bike ride, like 10 miles out to Nyack. And I don't think you doubted for a second
No.
that I could do it.
Oh, you got this, man. Yeah.
And I did it.
Yeah.
And that's led to me, I think we're enhancing each other's lives.
Yes.
And I think that's a good thing. And who knows, what we'll accomplish with
now you
with
are
this too.
You
I mean,
as the listener are, well, now you're in it.
I guess what we're trying to say is you're welcome. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a true gift.
It really is. Our sadness is your reward. But I think other things we plan to do is maybe we'll bring in guests.
Yeah.
Other people that have anywhere from, if you've dealt with this kind of stuff, to people that work in fields where they are around and deal with this type of, human emotion. I can think of a couple right off the bat. I'm sure you can too.
Yeah. I mean, people who have experienced multiple losses. And I would say too, grief is different in a lot of ways. We have a suffering country right now, and we're, not to pull politics or anything into it, but we have demographics and communities of people who have been dealing with grief for hundreds of years, and I have friends that are people of color who have a very difficult time even getting up after something really massive happens in our country that they continually see, there are people being slaughtered in the streets. And what I didn't and failed to realize until I became a student of grief is how it impacts people so differently, and how that is very much just as real as what you and I are experiencing.
Sure, because that's the thing is the stuff that's important to each individual person varies, and something that's like everything to somebody's life might not seem like that big of a deal to you because A, you might not have any experience with it, or B, it's not something that you understand or have anything to do with. But you got to try to remember that the emotions they're feeling from that thing that doesn't apply to you are the same emotions that you're feeling for the thing that does apply to you. So it's like, I think if we would all do well to remember that, and I think that's, again, what brings us together. I think both being from the area and somewhat known in the community for different reasons, individually of each other, I think, like you said, an unassuming friendship. I think some people will be surprised if they don't know we're buddies already, that it's like, oh, how'd those two meet? How did that happen?
Pain and suffering.
Dude, what? Yeah, that's what it took. Unmeasurable sadness is what it took. And look at us go. But that's the cool thing, That's the cool and shitty thing at the same time, is like, would we be... Well, obviously we wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
That would be if neither of us had anything bad happen to us and we decided to get together in a recording studio and talk about bad stuff happening. That's a hard sell, I think.
You're right.
But would we be as good of friends? You know what I mean? Who knows? I think we already knew each other, but at the same time, it's weird. Sometimes you make friends with somebody like, oh, you like baseball? I like baseball. What? Somebody you care a lot about died? Me too. What? You're having a hard time dealing with life every day? Me too. Let's hang out and talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's a horribly beautiful thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've always known I'm a look at me kind of kid, but man, I'm really showing it today. And
You are sparkling, sir.
Oh man.
Yeah. So as we kind of navigate through this journey, we want to talk about topics kind of as they come up. Our hope is to cover some of the 5 stages, or what I call 5 bullshit stages, and rename them for what they actually are. And
step on some toes.
Yeah, we're going to step on some toes for sure. But always looking to kind of broaden my horizons as far as how to deal with grief. And I think right now, considering, and one thing just really quick is I think people look at my situation and they think, God, there really is no greater pain, the loss of a child, no greater pain, no greater loss. And of course, I'm not going to deny that because I'm in the thick of it. But, when I lost my sister to suicide, I thought nothing could ever get worse.
Yeah, nothing ever seems worse till it is.
Right. But, just because my grief is so heavy and so big, great big, it's really no different than the loss of a parent or, but hey, if you're going to come at me though and be like, I know what you're going through because I lost my cat last week. Like we're going to put the kibosh on this conversation.
I appreciate that you and Sprinkles were tight, but get out of my
sorry
face.
For your loss. The cool thing is, you can hop in a 5-mile ride and go get yourself a new kitty.
My buddy Jake's got 3 brand new inbred kitties ready to go every other week out there on the farm. So I mean, they're not as hard to come by as human children at all.
And we're not to say that we aren't sensitive to your loss, because we have animals too that we love, but dry it up, pumpkin.
I think that's what we'll try to do too, is like focus more on the broader. Obviously it'll be impossible not to focus on the specific things that we, are dealing with, but the broader feelings of it and like picking that apart as to where I think that will, or at least I hope, will be the most helpful thing to people listening to where they're like, totally.
Yes.
Because that's basically how the last several months have been for me and you talking is like, you'll say how you're feeling and I'll be like, dude, totally.
Yeah.
That was yesterday.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. And then it'll be flip-flop the next day. And I'll be like, oh, man, this happened. You'd be like, dude, totally. And there's something very comforting about that.
About the validation.
You don't feel as alone
in
the craziness, especially if it's new to you, where you're having all these feelings and moments and irrational thoughts where I can't
wait to tackle that episode.
Where it's like half like I'm being absolutely fucking crazy right now, but then the other half of you's like, I don't care, I'm fucking crazy right now. And like you don't know which one to listen to, but they're both talking.
Yeah.
And we're not schizophrenic, don't call the cops. we it's just it's a lot. You know what I mean? So when you're in those, like you said, to like have, has anyone ever made it through something like that all by themselves? They have. It's called serial killers. Those are the ones collecting fingernails of strange people that they met on the subway and drawing pictures of things and other people's blood on walls. And I don't want to be that guy, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, this is our...
So I'm going to need to talk about it a little bit.
Fair.
I don't have enough money for that much saran wrap to keep in my house, so I watched Dexter. That guy must go through a lot of saran wrap. I just don't...
He must have lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
Or cat, or his family pets.
Yeah, and no one talked to him.
I will be pissed if I find out that his MO is based because his childhood dog died.
Oh, man, that would be the worst.
Yeah, like, listen,
but then that would go to
that.
prove that you can't go through grief alone, because it's like, like Sparky, he was my favorite dog. He died. Then all of a sudden, no one's hanging out with me. No one's being nice to me, asking how Sparky was. 5 years down the road, I haven't dealt with that emotionally. And now I've gotten a Sam's Club membership so that I can buy saran wrap in bulk. And I'm running around stalking other serial killers so I can kill them in weird warehouses. It's a slippery slope, Tiff. It really is.
Truer words never spoken.
These are the things you got to think about.
That's right.
And this is why we're doing this. We're saving other people from that.
That's right.
We're saving lives, basically. Yeah. Again, you're welcome. You're welcome, America. It's got to be funny. That's the other thing.
Yes,
we're going to be serious and we got to have fun.
Yes, before we close, I think it's really, really important that if you're hearing anything on this podcast that is offensive to you, some of it is humor, some of it's satire, and that's, you just have to see it for what it is. We can't sit here and cry about it and hope that we keep you entertained.
And who wants to sit and listen to someone be crazy bummed out for a whole hour? Like, we can be real and talk about real stuff without, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, life's crazy.
Life is crazy.
Wear a helmet. It's just, there's no way to even know probably doing this like exactly how every episode's going to be, because, and that's kind of, the kind of like stream of consciousness I think that we're going to try to maintain too. And I think what we'll probably do is we'll probably start a Facebook page for the podcast, where we'll try to post episodes. We'll probably most likely be getting on Spotify and everything like that. But I would recommend and encourage anyone that listens to this to not only follow the Facebook page that we'll make, but give us suggestions.
Yeah, drop some ideas.
What do you want to hear us talk about? What are things you've dealt with? If you don't want to do that publicly, send us a private message.
Yeah.
You'll be anonymous. We would never bring up names if we mentioned your story at all. But like, that's how we learn. You know what I mean? Like we said, everybody's different. Everybody's got a different story. And we could just as easily learn and grow in some way from hearing something from you as you could from hearing this from us.
Yep. It's real. It's in raw time, you know, like it's everything that we're experiencing is exactly how it comes, unrehearsed, just very jagged. And
that's the beauty of the internet is like, who knows who we could reach with this. I'm really hoping that we end up with like a really sad, like Eastern European demographic, like just thousands of people. Like I want to be to like Eastern Europe for sad podcast what Hasselhoff was to Germany. You know what I mean? Just completely unexpected, but it was just like loved to no end.
Yes. We'll be big in any city that rains.
Everyone here will be like, I don't get it. But over there they're like, yeah, for sure. They're the best. Number one. That's my hope for this, I guess.
Big.
And again, just being honest with the listeners.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you want to touch on before we kind of wrap up this
initial
episode?
I think this is what it is. You know.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's what we're gonna do. It's who we are. I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be strangely fun.
Yeah. And cathartic. This basically, you as the listener are saving us from becoming serial killers. So I'll preemptively just show my gratitude.
We're helping you in the same token.
Yes.
Just one less serial killer, one podcast at a time.
I like that. I like that a lot. I like that.
But yeah, on behalf of my good friend Tiff, I am Justin Paulson.
I'm Tiff Mussman.
You have been listening to Friends with Death Benefits. Until next time, guys, hang in there. Hang in there. Hang in there.